In this lesson, I want to give you guys a over-the-shoulder look at exactly how I go about finding my suppliers. So in the last lesson, I named a few different ways you could go about finding suppliers. However, me personally, I only use two methods. That's Jungle Scout Supplier Database and Alibaba. Those are the two best methods, and they're good for different reasons, which I'll show to you. So let's start out here just taking a look at Alibaba. Let's say I'm looking for my exam table paper, and this is going to show me all the factories, primarily Chinese factories, that sell exam table paper. Now, Alibaba is an online marketplace where these different factories pay a fee to be listed on Alibaba. There are some ways to vet these suppliers or to learn more about them, and let me teach you a little bit more about that. So I see a number of different little medallions or whatever you want to call these things over here, and I can explain a little bit more about what those mean. So for example, like gold supplier, all you have to do to be a gold supplier on Alibaba is just pay like the $100 fee per year or whatever it is. Alibaba also shows us things like their transaction level, which let's see, they have 3 diamonds, which means $100,000 to $500,000 per year in transactions. Of course, what they believe, how often they respond, where they're from. So yeah, it gives you a little bit of an idea about the factory. Now, keep in mind, you want to take this like with a grain of salt because almost all of the information that is shown on here has been supplied by the factory, and very little or none of it has been verified from Alibaba, okay? And these Chinese factories don't have the best reputation as far as being completely honest about a lot of things that have to do with their particular factories, okay? This particular factory, it probably is a perfectly legit factory. You know, I can see they've been a gold supplier for a while. They've done, a handful of transactions on Alibaba. So they probably are a legit factory, okay? So like the chances of them just running off with your money, I would say are probably fairly low. But that being said, like it's really good to do your due diligence on these different factories and do your due diligence when you're speaking with these different sales reps before you go wiring them a large amount of money, okay? Alibaba, fairly straightforward, right? You search for a keyword that describes your particular product. You can look through the different factories. A few other just quick tips for you guys. What I like to do is I like to click on the suppliers tab up here at the top. This is good because on the products tab, it will show you like one supplier that makes a number of different products and they'll list them a bunch of times. Whereas here, I can just scroll through and I can just see all of the different factories that claim to make this type of product. That one should be fairly easy to understand, and I'll go into some more depth there in a minute. But first, let me hop over into Jungle Scout. Jungle Scout's built a little bit differently. Jungle Scout, with their supplier database, they have taken the data from the import customs records, like the government records, and they have organized them in this database that allows us to search through it, okay? So, whenever you import something to the US, you have to fill out some paperwork. Through this law called the Freedom of Information Act, Jungle Scout can get access to all that paperwork and data. They load into this database, and you can essentially see who is exporting what goods and who's purchasing it or who's the one actually importing it, okay? Now, as you can imagine on like the bill of lading or the customs data, there's a number of different pieces of information on there, including, who's exporting it, who's importing it, but also the size and the weight, a description of the goods, the HS code, and a number of just like kind of other little things like that, all right? And these are all different ways that you can search to try to find factories. So let's start by just searching by product. Let's do exam table paper. And Jungle Scout's showing me the factories or the exporter that has, exported goods that match the term exam table paper. So I can see it right there, exam table paper, right? So this particular factory, Ningbo Riwei Nonwovens Tech, these are their top customers. They've done 57 shipments in the past 5 years, and 2 of them have been purchased by UKW Distribution, and those included exam table paper rolls, okay? So that's one way to do it, and that's that's kind of cool. You know, I can go look at this other one. Let's see. This is actually probably the same company. They just go by 2 different names, Ningbo Riwei. So let's scroll down. Hong Kong Medcare International. Let's see. Table paper exam drape sheet. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's probably what it is. So of course I could contact this factory and look into it a little bit more. Let's see who else here. B&H Medical Products. Sounds like someone who would make this type of product. Let's go over here. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of things that sound about right. So these would all be factories that could potentially make this particular product. And what I'm able to do is I'm just able to look them up on Google, and 9.5 out of 10 times you find the company. Yeah, and I could of course dig in here a little bit deeper and see what kind of stuff they're selling. There are other more powerful ways though. So the other 3 search options I have here are company, supplier, and ASIN. Company is whoever the importer on record is. So whoever is receiving the goods into the US, that's who Jungle Scout has listed as company. Supplier is whoever is exporting the goods, or the exporter on record. And with an ASIN search, you're actually able to search with a specific ASIN on Amazon, and Jungle Scout will search a whole bunch of records like trademark records and WHOIS databases and business registrations and stuff like that to try to find out who owns the brand, and then try to match up the factory with that particular brand. So let's go ahead and we can start with, let's actually start with ASIN. You know, the ASIN search, I'd say it only works about half the time, but when it does, it's pretty cool. Let's just try this right here. So I'm just gonna grab the ASIN of this product, copy it, go into Jungle Scout, paste, and okay, so so this product, the brand is Medline. The company who owns Medline is Medline Industries, Inc. So I was able to find that. And then these are the different suppliers that Medline Industries, Inc. has been working with. And I can actually filter these. So medical supplies, tissue medical supplies, that's probably this paper. Towels of paper pulp, that's probably also this paper. Medical, looks about right. So this is, looks like they might use multiple different factories. So it looks like one of these are actually probably, or all of them. Probably not that one. I would say like this one right here is probably actually the factory that they're using to get their medical exam table paper. And you can see what other customers this particular factory has. None of those I'm familiar with, but if you were involved with this particular industry, some of those would probably ring a bell, because more often than not, like all of the same companies will use the same factories. In the past 5 years, they've done 60 shipments. They have a dozen customers. So this overall just looks like a pretty legitimate factory. And I can just click this button, and it's usually pretty easy to find the company. Let's see. This is probably it right here. The Advocate of Concept of Health Paper in China. Yeah, it's probably them. So I can look at their products, paper products. And yeah, I could read through this, but this is, yeah, it makes sense. It would also make napkins and facial tissues and whatever else. So I could search through here, and this is the factory that this Amazon product is using. Now, The reason why finding the exact factories that people are already using is so beneficial is because one of the most difficult things about choosing a supplier is trying to gauge the quality of the goods. Because when they just send you like one sample, they're of course going to make that sample like as high of quality as they can, right? I mean, they're you know, maybe it's a legitimate sample, but they're not like gonna give you the broken one or the one that's kind of ripped or anything else, right? So the benefit of finding out what factory is making these products is you pretty much know what you're gonna get. Like unless you chose a different type of paper, like you'd be getting a 4 out of 5 star reviews like on your product if you chose the same one as this, right? So that's the benefit. And of course, the better thing to do is to try to find the factories that are making like this one right here. It's only 20 reviews, so it's not a huge sample size. Let's go this one since they have 78. I'm gonna grab the ASIN. Let me see if we can find their factory. So TD Products is the owner of it, but they don't have any imports on record. Let's see if we can try one other one. Like I said, it doesn't work every time. Let's go to this one. You can actually also grab the ASIN out of the URL, which is a little bit faster. So it doesn't look like the right one. It could be one of these other factories. Let's just see real quick if any of those look right. What's this one? No, it doesn't look like it. The reason Jungle Scout's showing you these different companies right here is that Pro Advantage is actually a trademark registered with multiple companies. So actually all these different companies have the Pro Advantage trademark registered. And the reason they can do that is because they're in different industries. So multiple people can have the same trademark if they're in different industries. Let me just look real quick here if there's any other ones. This might actually be it. Let me see who this supplier is. Medical supplies. They haven't done any shipments in a while though. This is actually probably the factory though. Yeah, exam table paper. Even if it doesn't pull it up on the first try, you can usually kind of poke around in there and find out like who it is. So this is the factory then that's making this one, which is cool because it seems like it gets all good reviews. You do have to kind of take it with a grain of salt when they only have 20 reviews because who knows, 5 of those could have been their friends or something. And yeah, it's just not quite as legit as one of those, you know, one of the ones that has like 100 or 200 or 300 reviews or whatever else. But this is still probably like a pretty good factory. What I do next is I need to start keeping track of these different suppliers. So we already decided this is one. I'm going to create a new group right here. I'm just going to call this medical paper. I'm going to create an ad. So I have in here a supplier tracker. I'm going to go to medical paper. And I'm going to add all the different factories that I find that seem legit for this particular type of product. So let's see, who's the first one I found? Let's go back and add them real quick, just so you can see my full workflow. This guy, do an ASIN search. And it looks like they might use a few different ones. Medical supply tissue. This one looks good. Add them in there. Bath tissue. I'm gonna look at this company real quick. Yeah, makes sense that they would also make things like toilet paper. Those are kind of similar, right? So I'll go ahead and save this one. And then I would continue to do that. Let's see if there's any other ones. Yeah, there's probably some other ones in there too, right? So I like to find factories that way. I like to find factories just by doing medical exam paper. Let's see, who in here has some more shipments? This guy's a little bigger, 27 shipments. Not seeing great results though. Medical exam tool. And let's go ahead and just grab a couple of them out of or let me show you the other way that I like to use the supplier database, all right? So we search for exam table paper rolls. We have these different companies from Alibaba. The other thing, so, like I said, the different metrics shown on Alibaba here, these are essentially self-reported from these different factories. But what I can do is actually can go in the trade database and I can find out what imports they've made into the US in the past 5 years. So they can't like fake this because this data comes from like the US Customs and Border Control or whatever. So this is really high quality data. So you can see one, how many shipments they've had recently, but also who their top customers are, what other types of products they've been importing, who else is using it and that type of thing. So, I was able to find this company inside of the supplier database. And I can see what they've been importing. So this checks out: smooth paper roll, headrest paper, tissue, flat sheet. Those all seem like kind of about the same, right? They don't do a ton of shipments, but they've been consistent, like 1 or 2 a year for the past 5 years or something. They've been around for a while. I could look into some of these companies a little bit more to see kind of gauge the legitimacy of some of these companies, because the more legitimate companies will have already done a certain level of due diligence. Let's see if this one pops up at all. Yeah, I mean, this company doesn't give me a ton of confidence in the quality of this factory, but you get the idea. You could kind of poke around and see who their other customers are. You can also see if any of their customers are on Amazon. If so, what kind of reviews they're getting. I'd probably have to search for more than just their name. Yeah. All right. Let me go ahead and add this one to my list. And I'll go ahead and grab a few more from Alibaba. So, this company, they've only been an Alibaba Gold supplier for 2 years. I'm actually not going to use them because in their name it says Wuhan Tomed Trading Company. And ideally, you don't have a trading company. A trading company is typically a middleman between the factory and you, whereas you'll get better pricing, and it's usually just an all-around better experience to work directly with the factory. This one, sanitary products, it makes sense that would be a company that specializes in what we're looking for. Let me just do a little due diligence on them. A lot of wax stuff. What else? Sometimes the same company is listed multiple times just because of different spellings. Yeah, those two are spelled differently somewhere. Let's see here. A lot of paraffin wax. Facial sponge. They have some. It looks like they also use this paper to on tables or beds where they do waxings. Looks like maybe that's what they would specialize in. Let's see. But I don't really see any reason that couldn't also just be used for medical exam tables. Oh yeah. All right, so this one probably wouldn't be my leading company because it looks like it's more so around the wax stuff. Disposable bedsheet rolls. To be honest, we'll add this one, but I would actually bet that this particular company, I would bet they actually have a different factory make this product and they just sell it through their factory. But we'll go ahead and add them for now. So we'll go ahead and add them to medical paper. All right, so let's see how many I have in there. So I have 5 different suppliers in here now. I would recommend trying to find 10 suppliers that you think would be like willing to work with, okay? Like step 1 is finding factories that you'd be willing to work with. And then step 2 is starting to reach out to them and starting to vet them. And what you'll find is only like 2/3 of these companies will even respond to you when you contact them. Either they don't have any production or I don't know, the salesperson for whatever reason just doesn't care about you. But you'll find that like 2/3 of them don't even get back to you. Or excuse me, 1/3 of them don't even get back to you. Of the 2/3 that do, what we're gonna find is that like some aren't very good communicators, some companies' prices are quite higher than others, or there'll be kind of like other red flags. So to start, you wanna try to find, I'd say 10 or maybe more quality factories for your particular product. And then after that, we'll start reaching out to each one of those individual suppliers. So as a quick recap, I find factories 2 different ways. One way is through Alibaba, just doing a keyword search. After doing a keyword search, remember that it's really beneficial to click over here on the suppliers tab. If you want, you can add some of these, or if there's a lot of suppliers, you can add some of these, what are these little things called? Certifications or whatever they all are to try to narrow down some of the better ones. So that's how I find them. I do my due diligence on them through the Jungle Scout supplier database by just going in here and searching for company. I make sure that they've shipped into the US before. I can do some due diligence for who their customers are. And then the other way I go about finding the suppliers is just searching either by ASIN or by product directly inside of the Jungle Scout supplier database. And a combination between all these, you can usually find like really all of the best suppliers in the world for that particular product. I mean, you have to think that a lot of these companies that we're seeing who they use for their factories, they'll have whole teams doing this, and they've really scouted the whole world to kind of like find the best factory. So that's how it's done. Make sure you add them all into your supplier tracker after doing so. Otherwise, it's very hard to keep up with all these different suppliers. I usually like to find a handful of factories for my 2 or 3 or maybe 4 top product ideas. And the reason for that is I'm going to use these factories to start getting some estimated cost numbers to plug into my budgeting and profit analytics. Before you start to find a few people that could potentially make this product, it's hard to know or to guess the costs associated with getting this particular product manufactured. But if you just find a few factories for each one, then we can start to get a rough idea of what these different products are going to cost. So you guys don't need to follow along with me while I do that, but I'm gonna start to find some other factories for these products. And then in the next video, I'll show you how I go about my budgeting and profit estimates, which helps me narrow down which product I ultimately want to choose. So I'll see you in there.